the MCAT Cars Podcast, session number 51. The cars section of the MCAT gives thousands of pre-meds nightmares every night. Whether you're an ESL student, lack confidence while reading, or a slow reader like me, Jack Westin and the medical school headquarters are here to help you score higher in every section so you can be confident you're ready to get the MCAT score of your dreams. Now, welcome to the MCAT Cars Podcast. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, and I am thankful that you are here today, joining me and Jack Westin on this journey to improving your car score and your MCAT score overall. If you are looking for more help on your cars section, go to jackwestin.com. You can actually go to medicalschoolhq.net/jackwestin, which will automatically activate a $100 off coupon for Jack's course. Again, that's medicalschoolhq.net/jackwestin. We have a great passage for you today, all about parenting. Jack Westin back for some more MCAT Cars podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How's it going, Ryan?
I'm excited as we're recording this. It's the fall and the birds are chirping and the MCAT gods are releasing their registration dates and pre-meds are freaking out because it's MCAT time.
Yeah, I have actually a blog on that. I feel like you shouldn't really sign up until you kind of have an idea of when you're ready. So,
that's interesting. I want to have a good talk with you because I have the opposite viewpoint. So let's talk about this for the student's sake. So
yeah, sure.
How is a student, right? A type A pre-med student who's usually freaking out over every missed question on an exam or whatever. How are they ever going to consider themselves being ready?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing that students have to realize is that this is not a university exam.
Yep.
University exam, you can potentially get 100% on every test you take, right? Mm-hmm. Because of the time factor. If you think about it, usually the teacher gives you a lot of time to think through it. You either know it or you don't know it, right? Mm-hmm. And that leads to a pretty good curve. You have those students who do really, really well. You have the students who don't do well because they just didn't study, right? But on the MCAT, you can't get that extra time, right? Unless you have some kind of accommodation, like the MCAT gives you some kind of accommodation. Everyone has an equal amount of time to look at every question. So, and the thing that makes it difficult is the timer. Right. So you feel like you can finish it and you can do well, but you just don't have time. And that is the key. It's to master the timing, master the timer. And if you can figure that out, then I think you're going to do really, really well. For a university exam, like I said, you don't have that issue. Usually you're not beating the clock. You don't have to rush. You don't have that sense of urgency. But on a standardized exam like the MCAT, you do. So to answer your question, you can't get every question right. It's impossible on the MCAT. It's almost impossible. I mean, the odds are very low. Okay. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
You have neurosurgeons that did not get above 90 percentile, right? Or 85 percentile today.
And even the students who are getting 100 percentile are still missing a question or two.
Yeah, it's all curved anyways, right? It's scaled if you want to use the right terminology here. But in any sense, you can't think that way. You can't think I have to be a perfectionist, and that's the transition that's very difficult for students to make. So how do you, quote unquote, beat the MCAT? How do you actually do really, really well? This is something I teach in my class. You have to focus on the easy questions. You have to get the easy questions right. It's not about getting every question right. It's about getting the easy questions right. Now, how do you know if something's easy or hard? Well, that's subjective. It depends on the student. It depends on their mood, how well they were reading at the moment. But if you have a hard time on a question, the worst thing you can do is stick to that question, because every question is equally weighed. Every question is worth the same amount of points.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're spending way too much time on one question that's worth 1 point, let's just say, then you're basically sacrificing the other questions that could potentially be easier, right? So you have to be able to spend the right amount of time on the right questions, right? So that you get the most questions right. And the student who gets the most questions right within that amount of time ends up with the highest score, right? It's not about getting a perfect score. So get the easy questions out of the way and skip or just wait on those harder ones and come back to them. And my general rule of thumb is if you're spending more than a minute on a question, more than 1 minute, 60 seconds on a question, you're basically guessing. You're basically going towards a guess. So you might as well just let it go, right? And that's a big, strategy. That's a big philosophy that you have to get your head around. And once you do, you're going to realize, okay, I just have to get the easy questions right. When you can get through the test, getting most of the easy questions right.
Okay.
That's it. If you can take a test, finish the whole test, get most of the easy questions right, that when you review, you're like, okay, I could get these. Mm-hmm. Then you're ready to take the test. So when should you sign up? When you're at a point where in a month or two, you'll be ready. Now, a lot of students think, oh, well, wouldn't the exam be full? The test center be full? No. Almost every single test center, I mean, I've yet to see it ever not happen, opens up in terms of spots last minute. Why? Because students over anticipate when they're going to take the test. They don't study. They cancel it. They void it, or well, not void, but they just cancel it. They reschedule it. They just decide they're not ready, right? So you'll save a ton of money and that fear of not being ready if you just wait and sign up when you're absolutely ready. There'll always be spots available as long as you're patient. Now, some students like to sign up earlier because it forces them to study, and if they feel like they have a goal, that I feel like that's a terrible reason to sign up. If you can't motivate yourself to study and to have this determination to take the test at a certain day or a certain time period, then I highly doubt signing up will do that. So sign up, definitely sign up a little bit more in advance, a month or two in advance, but not, let's say, 5 months in advance, 4 months in advance. I think that's pushing it. I don't think you need to really do that. But some students want to, and they just want to get it out of the way. They know for sure they have to take the test at that time, and they can do so. But I feel like because students just end up not being ready, you might as well wait until you feel like you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. So the only caveat I would add on to that is if you're in an area where there aren't a lot of testing centers, it may be that much harder to get the date that you need without traveling, et cetera. So lots of variables at play, and do what you think is right at the end of the day.
Yeah, but remember, even like, let's say you live in New York or LA, right? Or some major city like Miami, right? There will be spots that open up because today, right, or whenever, people are signing up and they're not going to be ready when the test day comes up. So they'll
reschedule cancel before their dates.
Right.
In my mind, that just adds an extra layer of stress of checking at that deadline. Are people signing up? Are they quitting or dropping? And it's just like, it's another level of stress versus just having that date. And if I need to push it back for $80 or $90, whatever it is, then so be it. Right. So
true.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have confidence in that theory, then I think you should go with it. But yeah, if you just want to commit and stick to it, that makes sense.
Okay. Awesome. What do we have in store for us today?
Yeah, so it's a pretty straightforward passage. We'll be looking at a pretty unique topic, and we'll see how much we can get out of it, even though we may not be too cognizant of it or necessarily be interested in it.
All right. If you want to follow along in the show notes or in the description in your podcast app. We'll have the link to this article. It starts off, I am an economist. I love data and evidence. All right. So the writer apparently is an economist and loves data and evidence. I love them so much that I write books about data-based parenting. All right. So they write books about a specific topic. All right. I love these super easy sentences, right? This is a pre-med's dream. Like, oh, thank you for just telling me what you want me to know. When questions arise about how to support parents at work, for example, from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Twitter, my first impulse is to endorse paid parental leave. All right. So now we have this kind of point of view about paid parental leave. Now, a pre-med, so this is where I start to process, like, what's the pre-med thinking here? And the pre-med may go, well, shoot, like, I don't know anything about what parental leave means or paid parental leave. Like, I'm a student. I'm not in the workforce. What are these words?
Exactly.
And so, again, the Jack Westin strategy, just keep reading and see what comes.
Well, no, that's not it. Part of it, right? If you don't read and understand a sentence, but you can understand this term.
Yep.
Let's break it down, visualize it. First of all, it says paid.
Yep.
So what does that mean? I'm thinking of, someone getting some kind of money.
Yep.
Parental. So who's getting paid?
The parents.
And what are the parent? What is the parent doing?
Leaving work, taking time off from work.
So they're getting paid to leave, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's all it is. They're defining it for you in the actual term.
Yep.
And that's what I'm saying is, you're going to read something you may not have any interest in or know anything about, but you can pick it up as long as you're open-minded. So keep an open mind. We're on this new topic, visualize it, right? Try to sense out what's going on. But yeah, if you read a whole sentence and you have no idea what's going on, definitely keep reading.
All right. Mountains of data and evidence show that paid leave is good for children's health and for mothers in particular. All right. So it started off with the person saying, I'm an economist. I like data and evidence. And now they're saying, hey, there's lots of evidence here to support this paid parental leave.
Sounds good.
I am more than comfortable making a data-based case for this policy. All right. So the author of this article is saying we should make this policy more paid parental leave.
Okay. So what's the big picture of this paragraph?
That paid parental leave is good.
Yeah, at least that's what it's trying to say. And is it particularly focused on one parent or both parents?
The mother.
Yeah. So maybe something that's important that'll come up.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. So big picture here is we're talking about this idea of paying parents to leave, right? And just do their thing outside of work, excuse me. And they're trying to decide, what kind of data we can capture on this, whether it's, positive, negative, etc.
Yeah. Okay. Paragraph 2. But experience rather than pure data leads me to believe that what happens after paid leave is nearly as crucial. That is to say, what happens when mom and dad return to the office. All right. So the author is going on and saying, okay, we know that paid leave is good, but what happens afterward is nearly as crucial, just as important as the paid leave itself.
Right. So the first part of that sentence, right before the hyphen here, says, what happens after paid leave is nearly as crucial. We really don't know in what regard they're like, are they referring this to the parents' well-being, or are they referring to the children's well-being? Because they kind of mentioned both in the previous paragraph.
Yeah.
But then they clear it up. They say that is to say, and that's just another way of saying this is what I mean, right?
Yeah.
What happens when mom and dad return to the office, right? So it's not referring to the well-being of the mom and dad outside of the home, the children outside of the home, right? Or outside of work, excuse me. But it's referring to the parents back at work. How are they going to react? What is their, kind of psyche when they come back? Right. That's kind of the point that they're making. Go ahead.
We need to normalize the experience of parenting while working. All right, so the author with this statement here that normalize the experience, so make it normal that you can be a parent and work.
Right. And now, what perspective is this coming from? Is this from the author? Is this from, let's say, some kind of group of people that agree with this? Who's saying this idea?
The author is at this point.
Yeah, it says we need to. And it comes off very strong. So I want students to kind of understand that if the author cares about something, they'll say it in a very direct manner that is an opinion, essentially. It's a very forward opinion, right? We need to normalize the experience.
Yeah.
What does normalize mean?
Make it normal. Make it accepted.
Right. Okay. So what's the big picture of this paragraph? What do you think the article really wants you to know? What does the author really want you to know?
So I'll just rewind a little bit. So paragraph 1, it's saying, hey, we need this paid leave. It's good for the parents and kids. And then paragraph 2, it's like, we need this paid leave and we need to make sure that the transition back to work is good too.
Sounds good.
All right. Paragraph 3, for the past few weeks, I've been talking with parents, mostly women, about all aspects of life with little kids. All right. So now the author is talking about research that he or she is doing, talking to these parents. My new book, Crib Sheet, focuses on using data to make parenting decisions. So nice little plug for a book there, Crib Sheet. One thing I heard much more than I would have liked and more than I would have expected was that parents feel the need to hide or minimize the evidence of their children at the office. Okay. So the author's going and talking to these parents, and what he or she is hearing is that parents feel like they need to hide the fact that they have kids.
So I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
Why is the author saying that parents need to hide the fact that they're, parents at work, when in the previous paragraph, the author is suggesting that we have to normalize being a parent at work? I don't get that. Can you explain that disconnect?
Yeah. So good question. So I think a typical pre-med would be like, what's going on? I'm confused. So I think it goes back to that question you were asking, right? At the end of the previous paragraph, we need to normalize. It's the author's point of view. And then in this paragraph, the author is stating the parent's point of view.
Okay. Yeah. And so this is weird because the structure doesn't seem to follow what we normally would use in a basic conversation, right? The author described their opinion and then the problem.
Yeah.
Right. So their opinion is, okay, let's normalize parenting at work, right? Or parents at work. But then the author describes the actual problem.
Yep.
So as a reader, you have to realize that the second paragraph is the solution and the third paragraph is the actual problem, right? So we have to superimpose the second paragraph to the third paragraph and whatever comes out afterwards. So in order for us to figure that out, you have to know the author's point of view. And if you don't, then you may actually be confused. You may actually confuse the second paragraph and the third paragraph, or not be aware of where we're going with this. And I think the key really was the word we in the second paragraph. We need to, right? We need to normalize. So that gives you the opinion of the author there, and that you should really stick to that.
Yeah.
It's great.
And that last sentence of paragraph 3 is parents feel the need to versus we need to.
Exactly. Yeah. So that explains why the author cares so much about this, right? This is how it is. This is the status quo. And we need to change this.
Yep. Okay. Paragraph 4. I should be clear that most of the parents I spoke with had good, enviable, lengthy, gender-neutral leave policies. All right. So the author is kind of, it's almost like he's or she's backtracking a little bit, saying, okay, like, I spoke with some people who had some problems, but most people had good policies, good things going on at work.
Well, you remember how you defined it from the parent's perspective.
Yep.
In the previous paragraph, whose perspective is this? Lengthy gender neutral leave policies. Whose policies are these?
It's the employer's policies that the parents are telling the author about.
Exactly. So we have to figure out who's saying what or who believes what. The author believes we have to normalize it. The parents believe that there's, they're kind of embarrassed or whatever, right? They feel like they have to hide the fact that they have children. But it's ironic because what is the workplace trying to do?
Trying to make it good for their workers.
Yeah, or at least it seems like it, right? Gender neutral leave policy, that's awesome.
Yep.
Right? So then question comes to the point of, why are these parents feeling this way then? Right? Why are they embarrassed or why are they hiding the fact that they have children? Let's go ahead.
The issues they encountered were more subtle, more nebulous, and more about climate. All right, so here are the potential issues that the parents are raising is subtle and nebulous, right? I'm not sure what nebulous means. I'm assuming it's just another way of saying subtle, and more about climate. I'm like, well, climate change, like it's hot outside, or is that just another word maybe for culture? Just kind of the culture of the environment.
Right. So climate is definitely being used as kind of a different meaning than what we're used to, right? So it's more of the attitude, the attitude of the environment, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the actual weather of the environment. So yeah. All right, cool. So yeah, and I love how you said, look, nebulous, I don't know, probably same thing as subtle. Yeah, it kind of is. So that was really sharp. Awesome. Okay, so what's the big picture?
So it looks like, right, super short paragraph, only 2 sentences. First sentence is saying, look, most of these parents had good leave policies, but even with the policies, there's still subtle issues at play here that they have problems with.
Sounds good. And I feel like if you're not empathetic or at least understanding to some extent, you're not going to get this passage, right? So I think this is a great passage because it kind of shows whether or not you can figure out those nuances, those gray areas. And we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. But, grayness is okay. I want students to realize this, that sometimes they'll say something and it may seem like they're going to contradict themselves, but it's not a contradiction. It's more of an exception to the rule, right? And that exceptions exist. It's okay, right? Like you can have a gray area. It doesn't have to be black and white. It could be kind of in the middle, right? And the key is to understand how middle is the author. Is the author on, the whitish area or the blackish area, but not necessarily right in the smack dab middle. Does that make sense? So that's what separates, I would say, 130 plus and let's say a 126 or 125 is how connected are you with the author?
Yeah. So it's a very interesting point you brought up, and something that I've never really talked about with anybody on any of my podcasts is you talked about having some level like baseline empathy, which we want with physicians and humans in general, but we have, it seems like, a growing number of students on the autism spectrum. And one of the things that it seems to be difficult for many is that connection, right? That empathy, that understanding of the facial expressions and body positions of someone, right? Of somebody they're looking at. And I wonder how much that translates to reading and being able to process and empathize while reading as well. That'd be interesting to see if there's any data on that.
Yeah, I have my opinions on this, but I think there's definitely a correlation.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can, because the author is going to describe facial kind of reactions, right? And if you can't visualize that or sense that, then it may mean that you may not be as aware of them or care much about them. I have no idea, but it would be very interesting to see.
Yeah, interesting to see and interesting to potentially figure out workarounds for those students.
Yeah, the MCAT's trending towards compassion, If you think about it, they added this entire new section, psychology and sociology.
Yeah.
Pre 2015, they didn't test psychology and sociology.
Yeah, they don't care.
Right. So what does that mean? That means that the board at, the AAMC, really believe that the future of medicine is compassion to some extent, understanding others. So I know you can also make that argument, I guess, for reading. Who knows? It's ironic because whenever I talk to my friends and people that I know who are really deep in medicine, doctors and such, they all think, forget compassion, just be a good doctor, just know your stuff, But then you go in and look at the institutions that try to set up these things, and they say, oh, we got to have more compassionate physicians. So, I see a case for both. Be really smart, be really sharp. But yes, you have to have compassion, don't you think? I mean,
1,000,000%. I can give personal stories of doctors when I was going through stuff that one was completely data driven and didn't connect with me at all, and the other one just put her hand on my shoulder and said everything's going to be okay, and I was just tears, right? Thank you for just recognizing me as a human being. So,
yeah, and sometimes that's all you need, right? But what if that? Let's say I'm not saying that compassionate person is not as competent, but let's just say they're not as competent. Would you rather have a more competent, less compassionate individual helping you, or would you rather have a less competent, compassionate individual diagnosing you or giving you health advice? Right.
The problem is, as a patient, you don't know who's competent and who's not. So
who's not? Yeah.
all the patient knows is that does this person care about me?
That's so true. Yeah.
So
yeah, interesting.
All right, let's get back to this. So paragraph 5 here. Women told me that they hid their pregnancies until well into the 3rd trimester, wearing loose-fitting clothes to avoid telling their bosses or venture capital funders that they were expecting. All right, so now we're getting to what these parents were doing, or the moms in specifically here with their pregnancies, hiding them to hide them. So it's interesting. Anything on that one?
I'm just thinking about superstitions and stuff. A lot of people usually hide it because of, superstitions on stuff. But it's interesting to say that, when you read this, you have to really understand where the parent's coming from.
Yep.
Right? You have to think of it in terms of the parent. So they're avoiding it, right? So we're going back to that 3rd paragraph where, the author is saying they try to hide the fact that they have children. So this is a repeating theme. Why is the author bringing this back up? Why is the author saying, that the parent is afraid or is in some ways embarrassed to mention they have children?
Yeah, it's always one of those things. Like in this situation, we don't know, right? Is the mom hiding the pregnancy because she knows what the response will be because her partner just announced that she was pregnant and saw the results of that, or just because she assumes what's going to happen? But that's kind of outside the scope of this.
Right, exactly. So we don't know, and we shouldn't guess, but we have to realize that this exists, that this problem exists.
Yep.
Great.
All right. Once they had kids, some told me they simply never discussed them. All right. So hiding their pregnancy, and then once the kids were born, just pretending they're not there at work. That sucks. All right. If they had to deal with a child-related issue, they lied about why they were leaving work. All right. So that's pretty miserable. So obviously kids get sick and can't go to school, and you have to stay home and take care of them. And apparently these parents were saying that they would just lie and say they were leaving work for another reason.
Right. Okay. So what's the point of this passage? What is the author trying to convey here?
So it's a very frustrating passage, like you said, because it's almost backwards. It's like going right back to paragraph 2. We need to normalize parenting, right? And everything after paragraph 2 is just evidence and data supporting why we need to normalize parenting.
Yeah, I mean, the author did warn you. I love data.
I love data.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, the point I really want students to get out of this is find interest in what you're reading, right? You may not know a single thing about paid parental leave, but I'm hoping that our discussions around this stuff can turn you and make you realize that there's a deeper angle that you may not necessarily care about, but you can find some compassion for. And as you're reading, also have, the ability to understand the author's points of views and keep that in mind when you're reading the rest of this passage, because it can help you understand why things are coming up.
I almost trying to think about questions that could come up from this. I could see an easy set of questions being like, what does the author think would best help parents in the workplace? And it's like, better policies around paid leave, or like 1 year of maternity and paternity leave, paid leave, like unlimited sick leave to take care of kids when they're sick. And then like one random one being like, bosses who bring their kids to work and have pictures of their kids at school and pictures of their kids like on their desk, and openly talk about children during meetings, right? In my mind, that's normalizing parenting at work, and that's what the author would want.
Right. And then a student will read that answer choice and go, I never saw anything about bosses. Well, that's wrong.
Yeah. I saw stuff about policy. We need better policy. Yeah. 1 year paid leave.
Yeah. So exactly. I mean, that's a great question, right? So how do you answer that question? By focusing on that main idea, by focusing on the author's opinion, right? So it's deeper. It's not just reading and looking at words. You have to connect with the author. You have to really understand where they're coming from. That's good. That goes back to the gray area. It could be gray. It doesn't have to be black or white. It doesn't have to be right or wrong. It could be, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, right? You just have to know what level that is. And you get better at it when you read often and you start enjoying what you're reading. Most of my students love reading Cars passages. I have students who always email me and they go, I didn't like Cars, or I didn't like reading. And now I read in a different way. And, I like what I'm reading now. And I chatted with my roommate about art and history or whatever. And, I love those emails because it tells me that they have changed their way of understanding people fundamentally, right? And you can more so connect with whoever, wherever, whatever the topic may be. And I love that.
Yeah, I was at a meetup. I did a meetup while I was in San Francisco as we're recording this last week. And one of the students who struggled with the MCAT was talking about the car section specifically. And she's like, I don't like what I'm reading. And I said, that's the problem. Like you just have to pretend, just make yourself like it. I mean, it's a hard thing to do. It's easy to say. But it was just funny. We talk about that all the time here on this podcast. And then she's just like, I hate cars. I hate what I'm reading. And I'm like, that's just a mindset thing.
Yeah, and it's a challenge. It's really forcing students to sit there and do something you don't want to do for the sake of, becoming a doctor. They want to see how bad you want this. Are you willing to do this stuff in order to get to this next stage of your career? It's a good weeder. I mean, it'll weed students out who really don't want to be a doctor, in my opinion.
All right, so there you have it. Again, go to medicalschoolhq.net/Jack Westin, or you can text the word MCAT CARS, all one word, MCAT CARS to 44222, and that'll give you a link directly to that activated coupon. Hope you have a great week. Don't forget to subscribe to get these podcasts every week right in your podcast player of choice. I'll see you next time here on the MCAT CARS podcast.
This is MedEd Media.